The security guard's grip tightened around Marcus's wrist, his fingers digging into the faded fabric of his work shirt. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, casting jagged shadows across the break room floor. "You've got some nerve," the guard hissed, his breath sharp with the stale tang of coffee. "Stealing right from the CEO's office." Marcus's pulse hammered in his throat. He hadn't taken anything. But the accusation hung in the air like a blade, and the small crowd of employees gathering at the door only sharpened its edge. "I didn't," Marcus started, but the guard cut him off with a shove toward the exit. "Save it for HR." The walk down the hallway felt endless. Whispers slithered behind him. Janitor. Always knew he was shady. Probably needed the money. Marcus kept his back straight, his jaw locked. He had cleaned this building for 6 years, buffed its floors until they shone like glass, scrubbed stains no one else would touch. And now? A thief. The HR office was cold. Too cold. Ms. Whitmore sat behind her desk, her manicured fingers steepled, her gaze sharp enough to flay skin. "The watch was a gift from the board," she said, voice clipped. "Worth over $10,000. And it disappeared from Mr. Harrington's desk this morning." Marcus swallowed. "I don't even wear a watch." She slid a grainy security still across the desk. "A figure in a janitor's uniform, hunched near the CEO's office late last night." The face was blurred, but the build, broad shoulders, tall frame, matched his. "That's not me," Marcus said, leaning forward. "I was off by 6. Check the logs." Ms. Whitmore didn't blink. The system was down for maintenance. No records. A trap. The realization slithered into his gut. Someone had planned this. "You'll be escorted out," she said. "And if you return, we'll involve the police." The guard yanked him up before he could protest. The stares of his co-workers burned into his back as he was marched through the lobby. Some smirked. Others looked away, as if his shame was contagious. Then, just before the doors, he saw him. Daniel Carter, junior executive. Smug smile playing on his lips as he leaned against the reception desk, one hand casually tucked in his pocket. The glint of silver peeked from his cuff. A watch. Marcus's breath caught. Daniel noticed his stare and smirked wider, lifting his wrist as if to check the time. "You son of a..." The guard shoved Marcus outside before he could speak. The doors slammed behind him, sealing his fate. But as he stood there, fists clenched, the pieces clicked. Daniel had access to the security feeds. Daniel had been angling for a promotion, one Marcus's supervisor had hinted he might be considered for. And Daniel had always looked at him like he was something scraped off a shoe. This wasn't over. He turned, staring up at the gleaming corporate tower. They thought he'd slink away, defeated. But Marcus knew every corner of that building, every blind spot, every unmonitored door. And he was going back in. The night air was thick with the hum of distant traffic as Marcus crouched behind the dumpster in the alley beside Harrington and Lowe. His fingers traced the spare key he'd kept for emergencies, the one hidden beneath the loose brick near the service entrance. They'd change the locks eventually, but not tonight. A shadow moved past the frosted glass of the back door. The night guard, Reynolds, making his rounds. Marcus counted the seconds until the man's footsteps faded. The lock turned with a quiet click. The door creaked open just enough for him to slip inside. The familiar scent of industrial cleaner and stale coffee wrapped around him. He moved silently, avoiding the cameras he'd helped install. The security room was on the 3rd floor. If he could get there, he could pull the real footage. Prove it wasn't him. But halfway up the stairwell, a voice froze him in place. "Just make sure the files are wiped." "Daniel." Marcus pressed against the wall, breath held. Another voice, lower, grumbled in response. "I told you it's handled. But if anyone digs too deep, they won't." Daniel's laugh was smooth, arrogant. "Who's going to believe a janitor over us?" The blood roared in Marcus's ears. Us. There was more than one person in on this. The voices faded as they moved down the hall. Marcus exhaled slowly, then followed, careful to keep his steps light. Daniel's office door was ajar. Inside, the glow of a computer screen cast flickering light across the room. Marcus edged closer, catching a glimpse of spreadsheets and a flash drive plugged into the port. Then, footsteps. Coming back. He ducked into a supply closet just as Daniel and the other man returned. Through the slats in the door, he watched Daniel pull a small velvet box from his desk. "One more thing to take care of," Daniel muttered, tossing it to the other man. "Get rid of it." The man pocketed it with a nod. And the janitor? Daniel smirked. He's already fired. But if he keeps sniffing around, accidents happen. The words curled like poison in Marcus's chest. This wasn't just about a watch. And if he didn't move fast, he wouldn't just lose his job. He'd lose everything. The janitor fired for stealing, then exposed the real thief. The closet air was thick with the sharp scent of cleaning chemicals, making Marcus's eyes water. He pressed his back against the cold metal shelves, listening as Daniel's polished loafers clicked across the office floor. The other man, broad-shouldered, with a security badge clipped to his belt, lingered near the door, arms crossed. "You sure this is clean?" the guard asked, voice gravelly. Daniel's reflection smirked in the dark computer screen as he shut it down. "The footage is gone. The janitor's record is flagged. Even if he squawks, it's his word against ours." Marcus's fingers curled into fists. Ours, so it wasn't just Daniel. The security team was in on it too. The guard shifted, uneasy. Harrington's gonna notice that watch is missing eventually. Daniel shrugged, straightening his cufflinks. By then, it'll be traced back to our dear janitor's pawn shop habits. He pulled a slim envelope from his drawer and slid it across the desk. "For your trouble." The guard hesitated before pocketing it. A floorboard creaked under Marcus's weight. Both men went still. Daniel's head snapped toward the closet. "You hear that?" Marcus held his breath. The guard's hand drifted toward his radio. Probably just the building settling. Daniel wasn't convinced. He took a step forward. Then, a shrill ringtone. The guard's phone. He cursed, pulling it out. "Reynolds." "Yeah." Daniel's attention snapped away as the guard muttered into the phone. "On my way." He hung up. Motion trigger in the east wing. "Gotta check it." Daniel waved him off, but his gaze lingered on the closet as the guard left. Marcus waited until Daniel finally turned back to his desk before easing the closet door open, just enough to slip out. The hallway was clear. He had two choices, run or fight back. His feet moved before his mind could decide. The security office was on lockdown after hours, but Marcus knew the override code, the one the guards used when they forgot their keys. He punched it in, heart pounding as the door clicked open. The room was empty, monitors glowing with live feeds of the building. He slid into the chair, fingers flying over the keyboard. Deleted files could be recovered. There had to be a backup. A folder labeled temp storage flashed on the screen. He clicked it. Dozens of video files. His pulse spiked as he scanned the timestamps. The night of the theft. He dragged the file into the player. Grainy footage filled the screen. The CEO's office, 11:47 p.m. A figure entered, tall, broad-shouldered, in a janitor's uniform. But it wasn't him. The person moved differently, stiffer, and when they turned slightly, the cap they wore slipped, revealing a flash of blonde hair. "Daniel." Marcus leaned closer. Daniel had staged this, worn a spare uniform, knowing the cameras would catch the blurry outline and assume it was Marcus. A noise in the hallway. He minimized the screen just as the door swung open. "Reynolds." The guard's eyes narrowed. "The hell are you doing here?" Marcus stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. "Just collecting my things." Reynolds' gaze flicked to the computer, then back to Marcus. "You're trespassing." He unclipped his radio. "I'm calling it in." Marcus's mind raced. If they caught him here, he'd be arrested. Or worse, Daniel would make sure he disappeared. He lunged for the fire alarm. The blaring sirens drowned out Reynolds' shout as Marcus bolted into the hallway. Lights flashed, doors unlocked automatically. Emergency protocol. Employees spilled into the corridors, confused. Marcus melted into the crowd, slipping toward the stairwell. He had the proof. Now he just had to get out alive. The parking garage was chaos. People evacuating, car alarms wailing. Marcus ducked behind a concrete pillar, pulling out his phone. He needed to copy that footage before Daniel wiped it for good. A hand clamped onto his shoulder. He spun, fist raised. "Easy." It was Eli, the old maintenance supervisor. His grizzled face was tight with worry. "They're looking for you." Marcus lowered his arm. "You believe me?" Eli's mouth twisted. "Never thought you were stupid enough to steal." He shoved a USB drive into Marcus's palm. "I pulled the backups. Now go." Tires screeched nearby. A black SUV skidded into the garage, tinted windows hiding its occupants. Eli paled. "That's Harrington's private security." He pushed Marcus toward a service elevator. "Move." Marcus ran. The elevator door slid shut just as the SUV's doors opened. Through the narrowing gap, he He saw Daniel step out, flanked by two men in black suits. Their eyes met. Daniel's smile was ice. The doors closed. Marcus's hands shook as he plugged the USB into a library computer an hour later. The footage loaded, clear, undeniable. Daniel taking the watch. Daniel planting it in Marcus's locker. But then, another file. One he hadn't seen before. Financial records. Transfers. Millions funneled into offshore accounts. Harrington and Lowe wasn't just covering up a theft. They were embezzling. And Marcus had just become the only person who could prove it. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. You should have walked away. The screen went black. Then, a gunshot echoed outside. Marcus dropped to the floor as the library window shattered. The janitor fired for stealing, then exposed the real thief. The penthouse air smelled of lemon polish and something darker. Expensive bourbon, maybe, with an undercurrent of cigar smoke. Daniel's shoes clicked against the marble floor as he led them into the living room. His posture relaxed as if they were old friends dropping by for a nightcap rather than armed intruders. Marcus kept the revolver steady, his finger resting alongside the trigger guard. The weight of it felt foreign in his hand, too heavy with consequence. Daniel sank into a leather armchair near the grand piano, swirling his drink. Ice clinked. You look terrible, Marcus. That shoulder needs proper medical attention. Cut the crap, Lena snapped. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. We have everything. The theft, the offshore accounts, the pension fund transfers. Daniel's smile didn't waver, but his knuckles whitened around the glass. And what do you plan to do with that? The Herald servers are fried. No reputable outlet will touch this without. We're not going to the press, Marcus said. A flicker of uncertainty passed through Daniel's eyes. Eli stepped forward, his voice low and rough. We're going to Harrington. Daniel barked a laugh. Harrington? You think he doesn't know? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. He's the one who designed this whole system. I just streamlined it. Marcus's stomach turned. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. The CEO himself was dirty. Lena didn't miss a beat. Then we'll take it higher. The SEC. The FBI. Daniel sighed, as if disappointed by their naivety. He set his drink down carefully on a coaster. You really don't understand how this works, do you? His gaze flicked to Marcus. Men like Harrington don't fall. They pay fines. They take early retirements. And people like you. He smirked. You disappear. A chill crawled down Marcus's spine. Then, a vibration. Daniel's phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a single word, cleanup. Marcus reacted on instinct. He snatched the phone before Daniel could move. Daniel's composure cracked. Give that back. Marcus scrolled through the messages. Coordinates. Timestamps. A photo of Eli's sedan parked outside the auto shop. They're tracking us, he breathed. Eli cursed. Lena paled. Daniel lunged. Marcus sidestepped, but his injured shoulder made him slow. Daniel's fingers grazed the revolver. A shot rang out. The bullet buried itself in the ceiling. Plaster rained down. Everyone froze. Then, from the foyer, a slow clap. Bravo, a new voice drawled. Marcus turned. A man in a tailored suit stood in the doorway, flanked by two armed guards. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, his smile polished and utterly devoid of warmth. Charles Harrington, CEO, billionaire, and, apparently, criminal mastermind. Harrington strolled into the room as if he owned it, which, Marcus realized bitterly, he did. Daniel, I'm disappointed. I expected you to handle this mess. Daniel straightened his tie, his face carefully blank. It's under control. Is it? Harrington's gaze settled on Marcus. Because from where I'm standing, you've let a janitor, a geriatric mechanic, and a cub reporter get dangerously close to exposing our entire operation. Marcus tightened his grip on the revolver. We have copies. Evidence. You can't silence everyone. Harrington chuckled. Oh, Marcus. You'd be surprised what I can do. He snapped his fingers. One of the guards stepped forward, holding a sleek tablet. He tapped the screen, and a live video feed appeared, a hospital room. A young man with blonde hair, hooked up to monitors. Daniel went rigid. Asterisk Ethan, asterisk. Harrington's smile turned predatory. Your brother's private rehab facility has excellent security. And excellent loyalty. Marcus saw the exact moment Daniel broke. The arrogant facade crumbled, replaced by raw panic. What do you want? Daniel whispered. Harrington plucked the flash drive from Lena's limp fingers. First, all copies of this. He turned to Marcus. Second, your unconditional surrender. Eli made a strangled noise. You can't possibly think we'll. And third, Harrington continued, as if Eli hadn't spoken, a public confession from Marcus, admitting he orchestrated this entire embezzlement scheme to frame Daniel. Marcus's jaw dropped. You're insane. Harrington examined his manicured nails. The choice is simple. You play along, and Daniel's brother lives. You refuse. He shrugged. Well, accidents happen in rehab. Overdoses. Such a tragedy. Daniel looked at Marcus, his eyes pleading. Lena shook her head frantically. Don't do it, Marcus. He'll kill us anyway. Harrington sighed. Such lack of trust. He nodded to his guard. The man unholstered his gun and pressed it to Eli's temple. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Tick-tock, Marcus, Harrington murmured. What's it going to be? The revolver trembled in Marcus's hand. He had 5 bullets, 3 enemies, and no good choices. The silence stretched, broken only by Eli's ragged breathing. Marcus could see the old man's pulse jumping in his throat, but his eyes were steady. Resigned. Don't, Eli muttered. Not for me. Harrington rolled his eyes. Touching. He snapped his fingers again. The guard cocked the hammer. Marcus's mouth went dry. He couldn't watch another person die because of him. Not Eli. Not after everything. Fine, he choked out. I'll do it. Harrington's smile was triumphant. Smart man. Lena made a noise of protest, but Marcus couldn't look at her. If he did, he'd lose his nerve. Daniel exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. Ethan stays safe. No matter what. Of course, Harrington said smoothly. Too smoothly. Marcus didn't believe him for a second. The guard lowered his gun from Eli's head and shot Lena in the leg. She screamed, collapsing against the piano. The sound was discordant, keys slamming under her weight. Marcus moved without thinking. He raised the revolver. Harrington tooted. Ah, shoot me, and my men kill everyone in this room, including Daniel's brother. Marcus's finger hovered on the trigger. Lena clutched her bleeding thigh, teeth gritted. Don't listen. Harrington checked his watch. We're wasting time. The press conference is in 1 hour. You'll confess, Marcus. You'll be arrested. And this unfortunate chapter will close. Marcus's mind raced. There had to be another way. Then he noticed it, the security panel by the door. A tiny red light blinked rhythmically. The penthouse had cameras. Of course it did. A man like Harrington would record everything. For insurance. Marcus lowered the gun slightly. And if I refuse? Harrington sighed, as if disappointed by a stubborn child. Then Lena bleeds out. Eli has a fatal heart attack. And Daniel? Well, he glanced at his trembling CFO. Let's just say Ethan won't be the only Carter in need of medical attention. Daniel's face was ashen. Marcus made a show of hesitating. Let Harrington think he'd won. I want guarantees. Harrington spread his hands. You have my word. Marcus almost laughed. The word of a thief and a killer. But he nodded anyway. Then let's go. Harrington's smile widened. Excellent. He gestured to his guards. Get Ms. Carter a tourniquet. We don't want her dying before the show. As the guards moved to tend to Lena, Marcus caught Eli's eye. He flicked his gaze toward the security panel, then back. Eli's nostrils flared in understanding. The old man had spent 40 years fixing broken systems. Maybe, just maybe, he could hack this one. Harrington's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowning. We need to move. The board's getting restless. Marcus let himself be herded toward the elevator, the revolver heavy in his pocket. The game wasn't over yet. And this time, he wasn't playing by Harrington's rules. The elevator descended in suffocating silence. Harrington stood between his 2 guards, radiating smug satisfaction. Daniel stared blankly at his reflection in the polished doors, his hands clenched at his sides. Marcus flexed his fingers, feeling the USB drive tucked into his sleeve. Lena had slipped it to him when the guards were distracted, a final act of defiance. Harrington's phone buzzed again. He scowled at the screen. Damn vultures. Marcus risked a glance at Eli. The old man gave an almost imperceptible nod. Good. He'd understood the plan. The elevator dinged. Lobby level. The doors slid open to reveal chaos. Reporters. Dozens of them. Cameras flashed like strobe lights as shouted questions filled the air. Allegations of embezzlement. Confirm the missing pension funds. Harrington froze. What the hell is this? Marcus hid his smile. Lena must have sent out a tip before they left the Herald. A reporter shoved a microphone in Harrington's face. Mr. Harrington, can you explain these documents leaked to the press? Harrington's mask slipped. Just for a second. Just long enough for Marcus to see the panic beneath. Daniel backed away, eyes wild. This was it. Their only chance. Marcus raised his voice over the din. I can explain. The crowd turned to him. Cameras focused. Harrington's glare promised murder. Marcus reached into his pocket. Not for the gun, but for the USB. The truth is all here. Stolen watch. Stolen millions. And one CEO who thought he was untouchable. Harrington's guards moved toward him, only to be blocked by police officers pushing through the crowd. Not just any police. Federal agents. Charles Harrington, the lead agent, announced. You're under arrest for securities fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Harrington's face purpled. This is outrageous. Do you know who I am? The agent didn't blink. A man who just got caught on camera confessing to multiple felonies. Marcus blinked. What? Then he understood. Eli. The security feed. The old man must have live-streamed the entire penthouse confrontation. Harrington turned to Daniel, betrayal written across his face. You? Daniel backed away, hands up. I didn't. The crowd erupted as agents swarmed Harrington. In the chaos, Marcus saw Daniel slip toward an exit. Eli grabbed Marcus's arm. Don't let him run. Marcus took off after Daniel, shoving through reporters. His shoulder screamed in protest, but he ignored it. Daniel hit the street at a sprint, dodging taxis and pedestrians. Marcus followed, his breath burning in his lungs. They rounded a corner into an alley and skidded to a halt. Dead end. Daniel turned, chest heaving. His designer suit was rumpled, his hair disheveled. For the first time, he looked afraid. Marcus advanced slowly. It's over, Daniel. Daniel's hand dipped into his jacket. Marcus tensed, expecting a weapon. But Daniel pulled out a phone. Ethan's hospital room still on screen. It's not over until my brother is safe. Marcus hesitated. Daniel's fear was real. His love for his brother, that was real too. A siren wailed in the distance. Daniel's voice broke. Please, just let me get to Ethan before Harrington's people do. Marcus studied him, the arrogant CFO who'd framed him, threatened him, tried to ruin him, and made his decision. He stepped aside. Daniel's eyes widened. Go, Marcus said. But this isn't finished. Daniel nodded once, then bolted past him. Marcus watched him disappear into the night. Somewhere in the city, federal agents were arresting Charles Harrington. Reporters were breaking the story of the decade. And Lena was getting the medical attention she needed. But Marcus? He had one last thing to do. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he'd memorized years ago. The line clicked. Vance here, he said to the Army investigator who'd never stopped digging into military contractor fraud. I have evidence you're going to want to see. The game had changed, and Marcus Vance was just getting started. The phone call lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Marcus counted each second as he leaned against the graffiti-stained alley wall, the brick rough against his back. The Army investigator's voice had been calm, professional, but Marcus had heard the undercurrent of urgency beneath the carefully measured words. Meet me at the old steel yard, the investigator had said. Midnight. Come alone. The line had gone dead before Marcus could respond. Now, standing in the shadows of the abandoned industrial complex, Marcus flexed his injured shoulder, testing the limits of the fresh stitches beneath his shirt. The steel yard loomed ahead, a graveyard of rusted machinery and skeletal frameworks, the remnants of a city that had long since moved on. The air smelled of iron and rain, thick with the promise of a storm. A flicker of movement near the main gate. Marcus tensed, his hand drifting toward the revolver tucked into his waistband. Vance. The voice came from behind him. Marcus spun, the gun halfway out before he recognized the figure stepping from the shadows. The investigator, Colonel Rachel Mercer, was shorter than he remembered, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, her eyes sharp even in the dim light. She wore civilian clothes, but the way she carried herself screamed military. You're late, she said. Marcus holstered the gun. You told me midnight. Mercer checked her watch. It's 12:03. Of course she'd count the minutes. She motioned for him to follow, leading him deeper into the steel yard. The ground was uneven, littered with broken concrete and twisted rebar. Marcus kept his steps light, his senses on high alert. You should know, Mercer said without turning. Harrington's lawyers are already spinning this. They're calling you a disgruntled ex-employee with a vendetta. Marcus snorted. Of course they are. Mercer stopped beside a rusted-out shipping container. The door creaked as she pulled it open, revealing a makeshift command center inside. Maps, files, and surveillance photos covered the walls. A laptop hummed on a folding table, its screen casting a blue glow across Mercer's face. You think this is just about Harrington? She asked. Marcus frowned. Isn't it? Mercer tapped a key on the laptop. The screen changed, displaying a series of encrypted financial transfers. Harrington's just the tip of the iceberg. These funds. They didn't just disappear into offshore accounts. They were funneled into black ops. Private military contracts. The kind that don't officially exist. Marcus stepped closer, studying the screen. The numbers were staggering. You're saying Harrington was funding shadow operations? Not just him. Mercer pulled a file from the table and handed it to Marcus. This goes higher than you think. All the way to the Pentagon. Marcus flipped open the file. The first page was a dossier. A high-ranking official with cold eyes and a service record that read like fiction. General Aldrich, Mercer said. He's the one pulling the strings. Harrington was his money man. And Daniel? She smirked. Useful idiot. Marcus's grip tightened on the file. Why tell me this? Mercer met his gaze. Because you're the only one who can get close to Aldrich. Marcus laughed, the sound harsh in the confined space. I'm a janitor, Mercer. Or did you forget? You're a problem solver, she corrected. And right now, Aldrich has a problem. His money trail is exposed. His pet CEO is in custody. And you? She tilted her head. You're the loose end he can't afford. A drop of rain hit the container's roof, then another. The storm was moving in. Marcus exhaled slowly. What do you want me to do? Mercer reached into her jacket and pulled out a badge, an official-looking ID with Marcus's photo. You're going undercover. As a maintenance worker at Aldrich's private estate. Marcus stared at the badge. You're joking. Do I look like I joke? No. She didn't. Marcus took the badge. And if I say no? Mercer's expression didn't change. Then Aldrich's people will find you. And they won't ask nicely. The rain came harder now, drumming against the metal roof like gunfire. Marcus pocketed the badge. When do I start? Mercer handed him a set of keys. Tomorrow. Your cover's already set. Just remember, Aldrich isn't some corporate suit. He's a trained killer with connections everywhere. One misstep, and you're dead. Marcus nodded. Anything else? Mercer hesitated, then pulled a small device from her pocket. A wireless earpiece. Wear this at all times. If things go south, I can extract you. Marcus took it, turning it over in his palm. It felt like both a lifeline and a shackle. Mercer zipped up her jacket. Oh, and Vance. Watch your back. Daniel Carter's still out there. And he's desperate. With that, she disappeared into the rain, leaving Marcus alone in the shipping container with nothing but the ghost of her warning and the weight of what he'd just agreed to. He looked down at the badge again. Asterisk Michael Graves. Facilities maintenance. Asterisk. A new name. A new life. And a mission that could get him killed. The Aldrich estate sprawled across 20 acres of manicured lawns and guarded gates. Marcus, now Michael, stood at the service entrance, his tool belt heavy with equipment, his earpiece hidden beneath a cap. The security guard scanned his badge, then waved him through with a bored grunt. So far, so good. The estate's main house was a monstrosity of glass and steel, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces. Marcus kept his head down as he followed the head groundskeeper, a grizzled man named Roy, through a maze of service halls. Your job's simple, Roy said, not bothering to look back. Fix what's broken. Don't touch what isn't. And for God's sake, stay out of the general's way. Marcus nodded. Got it. Roy stopped at a supply closet and handed him a work order. First job's the East Wing bathroom. Leaky faucet. Marcus took the paper. Anything else I should know? Roy's eyes narrowed. Yeah, don't ask questions. Then he was gone, leaving Marcus alone in the hallway. The earpiece crackled to life. Mercer's voice was a whisper in his ear. Aldrich's office is on the 3rd floor. Northwest corner. That's your target. Marcus adjusted his cap and headed for the East Wing, making a mental map of the estate as he went. Cameras in every corner. Motion sensors. Armed guards at key points. This wasn't just a home. It was a fortress. The bathroom was empty when he arrived. Marcus set to work on the faucet, his movements mechanical as he listened for footsteps. The earpiece remained silent. Then, voices in the hall. Marcus ducked behind the door just as two men passed. "Meeting's been moved up," one said. "General wants everything wrapped by tonight." The other man grunted. "What about the loose end?" "Handled. Carter's taking care of it." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Daniel." The voices faded. Marcus waited a full minute before stepping back into the hall. Mercer's voice hissed in his ear. "You heard that?" "Yeah," Marcus murmured. "I heard." He needed to move. Fast. The third floor was quieter than the rest of the house, the air thick with the scent of leather and cigar smoke. Marcus moved silently, avoiding the creaky floorboards, his tool belt barely making a sound. Aldrich's office door was ajar. Marcus hesitated. Too easy. But he didn't have a choice. He slipped inside. The office was immaculate, a mahogany desk, leather chairs, a wall of medals and commendations. The computer on the desk was locked, but Marcus had expected that. He pulled a thumb drive from his pocket and plugged it in, letting Mercer's software do its work. Files began downloading. Too slowly. A noise from the hall. Marcus froze. Footsteps. Coming closer. The download bar crawled. 67%. 68%. The footsteps stopped outside the door. Marcus yanked the drive free and dove behind a bookshelf just as the door swung open. General Aldrich strode in, his posture rigid, his face carved from stone. He wasn't alone. Daniel Carter followed, his usual arrogance replaced by something darker, more desperate. "You're sure the transfer went through?" Aldrich asked, his voice like gravel. Daniel nodded. "Every last dollar. Untraceable." Aldrich moved to his desk, tapping a key on the computer. The screen lit up, a security alert. Unauthorized access. Marcus's stomach dropped. Aldrich's smile was chilling. "It appears we have a rat." Daniel's hand went to his jacket. "I'll take care of it." "No." Aldrich stood, straightening his uniform. "I'll handle this personally." He pressed a button on his desk. Somewhere in the house, an alarm began to blare. Marcus was out of time. The game had just turned deadly. And this time, there was no way out. The alarm's wail cut through the estate like a blade. Marcus pressed himself deeper into the shadows behind the bookshelf, his pulse hammering in his throat. The thumb drive burned in his clenched fist, precious seconds of downloaded data that might be worthless if he didn't make it out alive. General Aldrich didn't rush. He straightened the cuffs of his dress uniform with deliberate calm before addressing Daniel. "Lock down the perimeter. No one leaves." Daniel's nod was jerky, his usual polished demeanor fraying at the edges. "What about?" "I said no one." Aldrich's voice carried the weight of decades of command. "That includes you." A flicker of unease crossed Daniel's face before he turned and strode out, his footsteps swallowed by the blaring alarm. Aldrich moved to his desk, opening a drawer with methodical precision. The glint of steel flashed as he withdrew a pistol, not some showpiece, but a well-worn service weapon. He checked the magazine with practiced ease before sliding it back into place with a click that echoed louder than the alarm. Marcus held his breath. The bookshelf's edge dug into his shoulder, but he didn't dare shift his weight. One creak of the floorboards, one rustle of clothing, and he was dead. Aldrich's phone buzzed. He answered without taking his eyes off the door. "Status." A muffled voice responded. Marcus caught only fragments. "East wing clear. Checking security feeds." Aldrich's gaze swept the room, lingering on the bookshelves, the drapes, the closet door slightly ajar. "He's here. In the house." A pause. "No, I want him alive." The call ended. Aldrich holstered his weapon and walked to the window, staring out at the storm-lashed grounds below. Lightning flashed, illuminating the silhouette of armed men fanning out across the lawn. Marcus's earpiece crackled. Mercer's voice was barely audible over the alarm. "Vance." "Status." He couldn't respond. Not with Aldrich 3 feet away. A drop of sweat traced a cold path down Marcus's temple. The thumb drive's metal edges bit into his palm. Aldrich turned abruptly, his eyes locking onto the bookshelf as if sensing the presence hiding behind it. He took a step forward, and the lights went out. The estate plunged into darkness. The alarm stuttered and died, leaving only the drum of rain against glass. Marcus didn't hesitate. He lunged left, away from Aldrich's last position, his shoulder clipping the edge of a side table. A vase shattered against the hardwood floor. "Clever." Aldrich's voice cut through the black. but not clever enough. A gunshot roared. The muzzle flash illuminated the room for a split second. Aldrich's profile, his arm extended, the bullet embedding itself in the wall where Marcus had been standing moments before. Marcus dove behind the desk as another shot rang out. Splinters of wood sprayed from the chair beside him. Mercer's voice in his ear, "Power's down for 90 seconds. Move." Marcus scrambled on hands and knees, keeping the massive desk between him and Aldrich's line of fire. His fingers brushed against a loose floorboard, and the lights flickered back on. Aldrich stood across the room, his weapon trained on Marcus. "Michael Graves, is it?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I should have known Mercer would send you." Marcus slowly raised his hands, the thumb drive hidden in his curled fingers. "Just here to fix a leaky faucet, General." Aldrich's grip on the pistol didn't waver. "Where is she?" "Who?" "Don't insult me." Aldrich took a step closer. "Colonel Mercer has been a thorn in my side for years. I know she's close." The earpiece was silent now. Marcus hoped to God Mercer had stopped listening. Footsteps pounded in the hall. Daniel burst in, his hair plastered to his forehead from the rain, a gun clutched in his shaking hand. "The grounds are secure." "No sign of." His eyes landed on Marcus. "You." Aldrich didn't glance away from Marcus. "Check his pockets." Daniel hesitated. "Sir, shouldn't we?" "Now, Carter." Daniel approached like a man walking to the gallows. His free hand patted Marcus down, finding the revolver at his waistband. He tossed it aside with a clatter before reaching into Marcus's pockets. The thumb drive. Daniel's fingers closed around it. He pulled it out, holding it up to the light. "Got it." Aldrich held out his hand. "Give it here." A strange expression crossed Daniel's face. For a heartbeat, he seemed to consider refusing. Then, with visible reluctance, he handed it over. Aldrich examined the drive before slipping it into his own pocket. "Thank you, Daniel. You've been useful." Something in his tone made Marcus's skin crawl. Daniel must have heard it too. He took an involuntary step back. "Sir, I..." Aldrich shot him in the chest. The report was deafening in the enclosed space. Daniel staggered, his mouth working soundlessly as he looked down at the blossoming stain on his shirt. He collapsed to his knees, then onto his side, his breath coming in wet, ragged gasps. Marcus stared, frozen. Aldrich's pistol swung back toward him. "You'll forgive the mess. Loose ends, you understand." The earpiece crackled to life. Mercer's voice was tight with urgency. "Vance, window." Now. Marcus didn't think. He grabbed the fallen vase's largest shard and hurled it at the ceiling light. Glass rained down as the room plunged back into darkness. He rolled left just as Aldrich fired. The bullet seared past his ear. The window. Marcus lunged toward the faint rectangle of gray light, his shoulder slamming into the glass. It held for one terrible second, then shattered outward. Cold rain slapped his face as he tumbled onto the balcony. Another shot. The bullet sparked off the wrought iron railing. Marcus vaulted over the edge without hesitation. The drop was farther than he expected. He hit the ground hard, his ankle twisting beneath him with a sickening pop. Pain lanced up his leg, but he forced himself upright, limping toward the tree line as shouts erupted from the house behind him. A flashlight beam swept across the lawn. Marcus ducked behind a hedgerow, biting back a groan as his ankle protested. The thumb drive was gone. Daniel might be dying. And Aldrich? A hand clamped over his mouth. Marcus thrashed, his elbow connecting with something solid. "Damn it, Vance," Mercer hissed in his ear. "It's me." She dragged him deeper into the foliage just as armed guards ran past, their flashlight beams cutting through the rain. Mercer's face was a pale oval in the dark. "Status." Marcus spat out a mouthful of rainwater. "Aldrich has the drive." Daniel shot. "Might be dead." Mercer's jaw tightened. "We need to move." "Where?" "The place is crawling with." She pressed a key fob into his hand. "Black SUV. Half-mile east." "Go." Marcus stared at her. "What about you?" Mercer checked her weapon. "I'm staying." "You'll die?" "Maybe." She met his gaze. "But not before I get that drive back." Shouts echoed from the house. "Closer now." Mercer gave him a shove. "Go." Marcus hesitated only a second before turning and limping into the storm, the key fob clutched tight in his fist. Behind him, gunfire erupted. He didn't look back. The SUV's engine roared to life as Marcus slammed the accelerator. The vehicle fishtailed on the muddy service road before lurching forward, its headlights cutting through the downpour. His ankle screamed with every press of the pedal, but he gritted his teeth and pushed the speedometer higher. The estate's gates loomed ahead, closed, guarded. Marcus didn't slow down. The guards dove aside as the SUV plowed through the wrought iron with a shriek of metal. The impact rattled Marcus's teeth, but the vehicle held together, its reinforced frame living up to Mercer's standards. A glance in the rearview mirror showed figures spilling from the guardhouse, weapons raised. Marcus swerved onto the main road just as the first bullets pinged off the tailgate. The earpiece, miraculously still in place, crackled. Vance. Mercer's voice was strained. Marcus exhaled in relief. Here. You. A pause. Then, drive. The line went dead. Marcus wiped rain from his face and focused on the road ahead. The storm showed no signs of letting up, the windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the deluge. His mind raced. Aldrich had the drive. Daniel was likely dead. And Mercer? A pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Growing closer, Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. Not just any pursuer, a military-grade Humvee, its grille reinforced for ramming. Aldrich wasn't letting him go that easily. The Humvee accelerated, its massive bumper kissing the SUV's rear. Marcus fought to keep control as the vehicle slewed across the wet pavement. Another impact. Harder this time. The SUV's back window shattered. Cold air and rain whipped through the cabin. Marcus spotted an upcoming intersection. A hard right would take him toward the city. Safety in crowds. The Humvee revved its engine. Marcus waited until the last possible second before yanking the wheel right. The SUV's tires lost traction. For one terrifying moment, the world spun, guardrail, sky, road, before the vehicle slammed to a stop against a concrete barrier. The Humvee overshot the turn, its brakes screeching as it plowed through a chain-link fence. Marcus didn't wait to see if they'd recover. He shoved the door open and stumbled out, his injured ankle nearly buckling beneath him. The city's glow beckoned in the distance. 5 miles, maybe less. He could make it. A gunshot rang out. Marcus ducked as the side mirror exploded in a shower of plastic. The Humvee's doors flew open, disgorging 4 armed men. No uniforms. No insignia. Deniable assets. Marcus turned and ran. The first bullet grazed his arm. The second kicked up asphalt near his feet. He veered off the road, plunging into the tree line. Branches whipped at his face as he crashed through the undergrowth, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The woods opened abruptly onto a steep embankment. Below, a rain-swollen river churned, its surface frothing with debris. Marcus hesitated only a second before hurling himself into the water. The cold stole his breath. The current grabbed him like a living thing, dragging him under, tossing him like a rag doll. He surfaced once, gasping, just long enough to see shadowy figures on the bank above. Then the river pulled him under again. Darkness closed in, and Marcus let it take him. The river spit Marcus out 3/4 of a mile downstream, depositing his battered body against a rusted piling beneath an old train trestle. He came to consciousness in violent stages. First the roar of water in his ears, then the bone-deep ache radiating from his injured ankle. Finally, the metallic taste of blood where he'd bitten his tongue during the turbulent ride. Rain still fell in sheets, turning the riverbank to slick mud. Marcus dragged himself onto solid ground, coughing up brackish water. His clothes clung to him like a second skin, weighing him down. The earpiece was gone, lost to the current. Mercer's voice wouldn't be guiding him now. A distant rumble, not thunder, but an approaching train. Marcus squinted through the downpour at the trestle above him. The rails began to hum. He needed to move. Aldrich's men would be searching the banks. Gritting his teeth, Marcus hauled himself upright using the piling for support. His ankle screamed in protest, but held. Barely. The train's whistle pierced the night as he began climbing the embankment, fingers digging into wet earth and exposed roots. Each movement sent fresh jolts of pain through his body, but the alternative, capture, interrogation, a bullet to the back of the head, kept him moving. He reached the tracks just as the freight train's headlight appeared around the bend. The ground vibrated beneath him. Marcus limped parallel to the rails, waiting for a car slow enough to board. A grainer car rumbled past, its ladder tantalizingly close. Marcus timed his steps, reached out. His fingers closed around cold, wet metal. For one terrifying second, His feet dragged along the ground as the train's momentum threatened to tear him loose. Then he pulled himself up, collapsing onto the narrow platform between cars. The train carried him into the storm. Exhaustion threatened to pull him under. But sleep meant vulnerability. Marcus forced himself to stay awake, counting boxcars to maintain focus. 37, 38, 39. At car 42, the train slowed slightly as it approached a curve. Marcus spotted the glow of city lights in the distance. His best chance. He dropped from the moving train, rolling to absorb the impact. Pavement scraped through his already torn clothes, reopening half-healed wounds. He came to a stop in a ditch beside the tracks, breathing hard. The rain had finally eased to a drizzle. Marcus checked his surroundings: industrial warehouses, chain-link fences topped with razor wire. Somewhere in the city's outskirts, a sign on the nearest building caught his eye. Midwest Cold Storage, Unit 14B. Eli's old safe house. The one he'd mentioned during late-night shifts, back when they'd first started suspecting Harrington's corruption. If things ever go south, the old man had said, there's a key behind the loose brick near Unit 14B. Marcus limped toward the warehouse, every step a fresh agony. The complex appeared abandoned, no guards in sight. He found the brick just where Eli had described, its edges worn smooth from years of weathering. Behind it, a rusted key. Unit 14B's roll-up door groaned in protest as Marcus forced it open just enough to slip inside. The air smelled of dust and old motor oil. He felt along the wall until his fingers found a light switch. Fluorescent lights flickered to life, revealing a mechanic's garage frozen in time. A vintage Mustang sat on blocks in one corner, its cherry red paint dull under layers of dust. Workbenches lined the walls, cluttered with tools and yellowed newspapers. Marcus's breath caught when he spotted the newspaper headline. Local whistleblower found dead, suicide ruled. The date was 5 years ago. The photo showed a man Marcus didn't recognize, but the connection was clear. Eli had used this place before. A noise from the shadows. Marcus spun, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Easy, kid. Eli stepped into the light, his face haggard, one arm clutched to his ribs. Blood seeped through his flannel shirt. Marcus nearly collapsed in relief. How? Been tailing you since the river. Eli grunted, lowering himself onto a stool. Had to be sure you weren't followed. Marcus rushed to support him. You're hurt. Nothing a few stitches and whiskey won't fix. Eli waved him off, nodding toward a first aid kit on the bench. Help me with this. The wound was worse than Eli let on. A deep gash along his ribcage, likely from broken glass. Marcus cleaned it as best he could with the limited supplies, his hands shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline. Eli didn't flinch. Mercer. Marcus shook his head. Don't know. Eli absorbed this silently before reaching into his pocket and producing a familiar thumb drive. Then it's up to us. Marcus stared. How did you? Had a hunch Aldrich would take it from you. Eli's grin was pained but triumphant. Made a copy before giving you the original. Marcus inserted the drive into an old computer on the workbench. The screen flickered to life, revealing files upon files of encrypted data. Eli leaned closer. That's not just embezzlement. Marcus scrolled through the documents, weapons manifests, offshore accounts, black site locations. And at the center of it all, General Aldrich's signature. This goes beyond Harrington, Marcus murmured. Beyond Chicago. Eli nodded grimly. We're not just fighting corporate corruption anymore. This is treason. The computer screen reflected in Marcus's eyes as he opened the final folder. Satellite images of a military compound, dated 3 days ago. Aldrich's endgame. Marcus zoomed in on the coordinates. We need to get this to someone who can. A crash from outside. Both men froze. Footsteps. Multiple pairs. Moving with purpose. Eli was on his feet instantly, wincing as he grabbed a wrench from the bench. Back door. Go. Marcus yanked the thumb drive free. Not without you. The main door rattled on its tracks. A voice outside. Thermal shows 2 hostiles. Eli shoved Marcus toward the rear of the garage. They want that drive more than they want me. Marcus hesitated. The door began to rise. Eli's expression turned fierce. Go, damn it. Someone's got to expose this. Marcus ran. He heard the shouts as he slipped out the back. Eli's defiant roar. The sickening crunch of metal on bone. Then gunfire. Marcus didn't look back. The alley behind the warehouse led to a maze of streets. Marcus moved like a ghost, sticking to shadows, his injured ankle forgotten in the rush of survival. The thumb drive in his pocket felt heavier than ever. Aldrich's men would be everywhere now. Police, military, all compromised. There was only one person left who might help. Marcus ducked into an all-night diner, the fluorescent lights harsh after the darkness. He slid into a corner booth, keeping his head down as he fed coins into the payphone. The number rang twice before picking up. A woman's voice, wary, "Hello." Marcus exhaled. "Lena, it's me." A pause. "Then, they said you were dead." "Not yet." Marcus watched the door, his nerves frayed. "I need your help." Another pause, longer this time. When Lena spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, colder. "Meet me at the old printing press on 38th. 1 hour." The line went dead. Marcus replaced the receiver, his mind racing. Lena's tone had set off every alarm bell. She'd either been compromised or... A police cruiser rolled past the diner's window, moving slowly. Marcus dropped a 5 on the table and slipped out the back. The game had changed again. And this time, he might be playing alone. The abandoned printing press loomed like a tomb in the pre-dawn gloom. Marcus approached from the rear, his footsteps silent on the cracked pavement. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every distant sound a potential ambush. The loading dock door stood slightly ajar. Marcus hesitated, then pushed it open just enough to slip inside. The interior smelled of ink and mildew. Ancient printing presses stood like silent sentinels in the darkness. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, casting eerie patterns on the floor. "Lena." No response. Marcus moved deeper into the building, his senses on high alert. A scrap of paper fluttered to the ground from somewhere above. He looked up. Lena stood on the catwalk, a pistol aimed at his chest. "You're alone." Her voice echoed in the cavernous space. Marcus spread his hands. "Yes." She descended the metal stairs slowly, the gun never wavering. The bruises on her face had faded to yellow, but the wound on her leg still made her limp slightly. When she reached the floor, Marcus saw the truth in her eyes. She didn't know whether to hug him or shoot him. "You disappeared," she accused. "After everything. After Eli. You just vanished." Marcus didn't flinch. "I was protecting the evidence. Or running." "Look at me." Marcus snapped, gesturing to his battered body. "Does it look like I've been hiding?" Lena's grip on the pistol tightened. "Then where were you?" "Tracking Aldrich's money." Marcus reached slowly into his pocket, watching Lena's finger tense on the trigger. He pulled out the thumb drive. "It's all here. Everything." Lena didn't lower the gun. "Why come to me now?" "Because you're the only one left who can publish this." A shadow moved behind Lena. Marcus reacted instinctively, shoving her aside as a gunshot rang out. The bullet grazed his arm, sending searing pain through his already battered body. Lena rolled and came up firing. The shadowy figure cried out and collapsed. More movement in the darkness. "Move." Lena grabbed Marcus's arm, dragging him toward a side exit. Bullets chewed into the wall behind them as they burst into the alley. Lena's car idled at the curb, passenger door already open. They dove in just as more gunfire erupted from the building. Lena stomped on the gas, the tires squealing as they fishtailed onto the street. Marcus clutched the armrest, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "You were followed." Lena's knuckles were white on the wheel. "No, you were." The realization hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. They'd tracked him from the diner. Which meant... Lena glanced at him, her expression grim. "They've been watching me since the hospital, waiting for you to make contact." Marcus slumped in his seat, the weight of their situation pressing down on him. No allies. No safe harbors. Just the two of them and a thumb drive full of secrets that could get them killed. Lena reached over and squeezed his hand briefly before returning her attention to the road. "Where to now, genius?" Marcus stared at the thumb drive in his lap. The answer came to him with sudden clarity. "We take the fight to Aldrich." Lena's eyebrows shot up. "You're insane." "Maybe." Marcus met her gaze. "But it's the only play we've got left." The city streets blurred past as Lena considered this. Finally, she nodded. "Then we'll need weapons." Marcus allowed himself a small, tired smile. "I know a place." The car sped into the dawn, carrying them toward what might be their final stand. But Marcus was done running. It was time to end this. The safe house basement smelled of gun oil and damp concrete. Marcus ran his fingers along the rack of weapons Eli had stockpiled over the years, military-grade rifles, boxes of ammunition, even a few grenades carefully packed in foam. His reflection in a sniper rifle scope showed hollow eyes and a face darkened by bruises and stubble. Lena whistled low as she examined a compact submachine gun. Your janitor friend had interesting hobbies. Eli wasn't always a maintenance man, Marcus said, loading magazines with practiced movements. He did 3 tours in Afghanistan before Harrington's contractors left his unit out to dry. The confession hung between them. Lena's fingers stilled on the weapon. That's why he helped you. Marcus nodded, slamming a full magazine into an AR-15. And why Aldrich had to kill him. A car door slammed outside. Both froze. Lena moved to the narrow basement window, peering through the grime-coated glass. Black SUV. 2 men approaching. Not military suits. She turned, face grim. They found us faster than expected. Marcus tossed her a loaded pistol. Back exit. Blocked. I saw another car circle around. Lena checked the chamber with quick efficiency. We're going to have to fight our way out. The front door splintered with a thunderous crash. Boots pounded across the floor above them. Marcus grabbed 2 smoke grenades from the crate. When I say go, head for the storm cellar door. He pointed to the far corner where rusted metal stairs led up to the backyard. A voice boomed from upstairs. Vance, we know you're down there. Lena raised an eyebrow. Friends of yours? Harrington's private security. Marcus pulled the pins on both grenades. Go. He hurled the grenades up the basement stairs as Lena sprinted for the cellar exit. Thick gray smoke billowed outward, filling the stairwell. Shouts and coughing erupted above them. Marcus followed Lena up the metal stairs, shouldering through the rotted wooden doors into blinding sunlight. The backyard was overgrown with weeds, surrounded by a sagging chain-link fence. Gunfire erupted from the house. Bullets chewed through the wooden doors behind them. Move. Marcus grabbed Lena's arm as they vaulted the fence. A round whizzed past his ear, close enough to feel the heat. They ran through neighboring backyards, dodging clotheslines and barking dogs. The shouts behind them grew louder. Their pursuers weren't giving up. Lena skidded to a stop behind a rusted-out pickup. We can't outrun them. She jerked her chin toward a motorcycle chained to a porch across the street. Can you hotwire that? Marcus studied the bike, then the approaching security team. Cover me. Lena popped up and fired 3 precise shots, forcing their pursuers to take cover. Marcus sprinted for the motorcycle, pulling a multi-tool from his pocket. The ignition wires sparked to life just as Lena dove behind the bike, her shirt sleeve torn by a near miss. Hold on. Marcus gunned the engine as Lena swung on behind him. The bike fishtailed on loose gravel before finding purchase and rocketing down the street. Wind whipped at Marcus's face as they weaved through traffic. Lena's arms tightened around his waist as she checked behind them. 2 SUVs following, she shouted over the engine roar. Marcus took a hard left into an alley, the bike's mirrors scraping brick on either side. The narrow passage forced their pursuers to slow down, buying them precious seconds. Lena pointed to a subway entrance ahead. Underground. We can lose them in the tunnels. The bike's tires screeched as Marcus braked at the top of the stairs. They abandoned the motorcycle and took the steps 3 at a time, plunging into the humid underground. The station was nearly empty, just a few late-night travelers who scattered at the sight of their weapons. Marcus vaulted the turnstile with Lena close behind. A train was just pulling out. Without hesitation, they jumped onto the last car as the doors closed, barely squeezing through before the train accelerated into the tunnel. Marcus collapsed onto a plastic seat, chest heaving. The car was empty except for an elderly man who wisely pretended not to see them. Lena checked her pistol's magazine. They'll have the station locked down in minutes. Marcus studied the subway map above the doors. We get off at 52nd Street. There's a maintenance access that leads to the old freight tunnels. Lena nodded, then froze. Her hand shot out to grip Marcus's arm. Your pocket. Marcus frowned, then felt it. A faint blinking light from his jacket. He pulled out the thumb drive. Except it wasn't blinking before. Tracker, Lena breathed. That's how they found us so fast. Marcus nearly threw the device out the window before stopping himself. Wait, this could be useful. Lena's eyes narrowed in understanding. Bait. The train screeched into the next station. Marcus spotted black-suited figures fanning out on the platform. Time to go. He yanked open the emergency door between cars as Lena covered their retreat. They moved through the shuddering train, car to car, until reaching the front. The conductor's compartment was locked. Marcus didn't hesitate. He shot the lock and kicked the door open. The conductor yelped, raising his hands. "Take whatever you want. We need to get off before the next stop," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm. "Can you open the front emergency hatch?" The man nodded frantically, hitting a sequence of buttons. A small access panel slid open near the front bumper. Lena peered out at the dark tunnel rushing past. "You're joking." Marcus handed the blinking thumb drive to the terrified conductor. "When you stop, give this to the men in black suits. Tell them we went toward the rear of the train." As the conductor nodded, Marcus turned to Lena. "Ready for another swim?" Her answering grin was feral. They jumped into the tunnel just as the train entered a submerged section. The icy water knocked the breath from Marcus's lungs. He kicked for the surface, grabbing Lena's hand as they were carried along by the current. The tunnel branched ahead. Marcus pulled them into a maintenance alcove just before the rushing water would have swept them deeper underground. They hauled themselves onto a narrow service walkway, dripping and shivering. Lena wrung out her hair. "Remind me why we didn't just take our chances with the suits." Marcus pointed to the alcove's rusted ladder. "Because this comes out 3 blocks from Aldrich's downtown office." Understanding dawned in Lena's eyes. "You want to hit him at the heart." Marcus started climbing. While he's chasing ghosts in the subway. The ladder led to a storm drain that opened onto a quiet side street. Night had fallen fully now, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement. Aldrich Tower loomed 6 blocks away, its penthouse windows glowing against the dark sky. Marcus checked his watch, 10:47 p.m. Security will be light this late. Mostly private contractors, not military. Lena shook her head. "You're forgetting one thing. We look like drowned rats who just lost a fight with a wood chipper." Marcus surveyed their ruined clothes, their visible injuries. She had a point. Then he spotted the solution, a high-end hotel across the street, its valet stand busy with evening arrivals. "Follow my lead," he said, straightening his posture as best he could despite his injuries. The hotel concierge barely looked up as Marcus and Lena strode through the lobby, dripping water on the marble floor. "Suite 1214, Marcus said authoritatively. "Key seems to have deactivated." The concierge frowned at his computer. "Name? Daniel Carter." Marcus held his breath. If Aldrich had reported Daniel's death. But the man just nodded and produced a new key card. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. Carter." The elevator ride up was tense. Lena kept her hand near her concealed weapon, watching the floor numbers climb. The suite was luxurious, king bed, marble bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of Aldrich Tower. Lena immediately went to the closet. Bingo! She held up a dry-cleaned suit with Daniel's name on the bag. Marcus rummaged through the dresser, finding underwear and shirts still in their packaging. He kept a bolt hole here. Lena tossed him a towel. "Enough chatter. We've got maybe 20 minutes before someone realizes we shouldn't be here." They cleaned up quickly, dressing in Daniel's clothes. The suit jacket strained across Marcus's shoulders, but it would have to do. Lena found a sleek black dress that fit surprisingly well. Marcus checked Daniel's laptop left on the desk. Password protected, of course. But a sticky note on the monitor caught his eye. A string of numbers and the word Ethan. He typed it in. The computer unlocked. "Bingo," Marcus whispered. Files upon files of financial records filled the screen. Marcus clicked through frantically. This is it, the full paper trail linking Aldrich to the embezzlement. Daniel must have been keeping his own insurance policy. Lena peered over his shoulder. "Can we use it?" Marcus was already copying files to a flash drive from the desk drawer. "Better than what we had before. This has account numbers, dates, even voice recordings." A keycard clicked in the door. They froze. The door swung open to reveal a bellhop carrying a bottle of champagne. "Compliments of Dash." He stopped, eyes widening at the drawn weapons pointed at him. Marcus lowered his pistol first. "Wrong room." The bellhop backed out slowly. "My apologies, sir." "Ma'am." The moment the door closed, Lena exhaled sharply. "We need to move. Now." Marcus ejected the flash drive and pocketed it. Aldrich Tower. Time to finish this. They took the service elevator down to avoid the lobby. The hotel's back entrance opened onto a delivery alley, empty except for a lone chef smoking by the dumpsters. Aldrich Tower's employee entrance was just half a block away, marked by a discreet keycard reader. Marcus pulled Daniel's wallet from the suit pocket. The keycard was still there. Think it'll work? Lena whispered. Only one way to find out. The card reader flashed green. The door clicked open. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped into the lion's den. The service hallway was deserted at this hour, lit by flickering fluorescents. Emergency exit maps showed the executive elevators were 2 floors up. They moved silently, avoiding the few cleaning staff still working late. At the elevator bank, Marcus swiped Daniel's card again. The private elevator doors slid open with a whisper. Lena hesitated. This feels too easy. Marcus stepped inside. Aldrich thinks we're either dead or still in the subway. His guard will be down. The elevator began its smooth ascent. Marcus checked his stolen pistol, fully loaded. Lena did the same. The doors opened directly into Aldrich's private office. Empty. The space was all cold modern design, glass, steel, and expensive artwork. A wall of monitors showed various security feeds, including the subway station they'd just fled. Marcus went straight for the computer. Another password prompt. He tried the same numbers from Daniel's sticky note. No luck. Damn. He examined the desk, looking for clues. Lena checked the door to the hallway. Locked from this side. Keycard activated. Marcus's fingers brushed against a hidden drawer under the desk's edge. Inside rested a single USB drive labeled with a string of numbers. He plugged it into the computer. The screen came alive with video footage. Aldrich in uniform, shaking hands with known arms dealers. Another clip showed him accepting thick envelopes from men in Middle Eastern dress. This is it, Marcus breathed. Proof of treason. A voice behind them. I wouldn't be so sure. Marcus spun, weapon raised. General Aldrich stood in a previously hidden doorway, flanked by 2 soldiers in full combat gear. His smile was glacial. You didn't really think I'd leave actual evidence lying around, did you? The monitors behind him flickered, changing to show various angles of the office, including Marcus and Lena standing frozen by the desk. A test, Marcus realized. You wanted to see what we'd go for. Aldrich stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor. You've been remarkably resourceful, Mr. Vance. But every game has an end. Lena's pistol never wavered from Aldrich's chest. We've copied everything. Killing us won't stop the truth. Aldrich chuckled. The truth is what I say it is. He nodded to one of the soldiers, who pressed a button on his wrist console. Every monitor switched to the same image. Marcus and Lena breaking into the office, handling the planted USB drive. See how easy it is to create evidence. Aldrich said, by morning, you'll be wanted terrorists. The people who murdered poor Daniel Carter. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. You won't live to see morning. Aldrich's smile widened. Oh, I think you'll find. The window behind them exploded inward. Marcus dove for cover as a rope line snapped through the shattered glass. A black-clad figure rappelled into the room, weapon raised. Mercer. Her first shot took the left soldier in the throat. The second went wide as Aldrich ducked behind his desk. Chaos erupted. Marcus grabbed Lena's arm, pulling her toward the hidden door Aldrich had entered through. Mercer covered their retreat, her precise gunfire keeping the remaining soldier pinned down. The hallway beyond was a sterile white, lined with security monitors. Emergency lights flashed as an alarm wailed through the building. Elevators are locked down. Lena shouted over the noise. Marcus spotted a stairwell door. This way. They crashed through just as Mercer joined them, her face streaked with blood that didn't appear to be hers. Nice of you to join the party, Marcus said as they took the stairs 2 at a time. Mercer checked her ammunition. You're welcome. Lena glanced behind them. He'll have every exit covered. Not every one, Mercer said. There's a service tunnel in the basement. Leads to the old sewer system. The stairwell door burst open above them. Boots pounded on the metal steps. Move. Marcus shoved through the next landing's door, emerging into a server room filled with blinking machines. Mercer locked the door behind them and wedged a fire extinguisher under the handle. That won't hold them long. They sprinted through the maze of servers, following emergency exit signs toward the basement. The air grew cooler, damper as they descended. A final door opened onto a cavernous space filled with pipes and electrical equipment. The service tunnel Mercer had mentioned gaped darkly in the far wall. They were halfway there when the stairwell door exploded open behind them. Aldrich's voice echoed off the concrete walls. Enough running. Marcus turned slowly. Aldrich stood flanked by 6 armed men, his uniform immaculate despite the chaos. Mercer raised her weapon, but one of Aldrich's soldiers shot it from her hand before she could fire. She cursed, clutching her bleeding fingers. Lena stepped forward, her pistol steady. "It's over, General. We've already transmitted the evidence." Aldrich laughed. "To whom? The press? The police?" He spread his hands. "I own them all." Marcus met Mercer's eyes. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Not all of them," Marcus said, pulling a small device from his pocket. "The real USB drive, not the decoy Aldrich had planted." Aldrich's smile faltered. "What?" Marcus pressed the button. Every screen in the server room came alive with Aldrich's incriminating videos. At the same moment, the building's PA system crackled to life, broadcasting the footage on loop. Lena grinned. "We didn't send it to the press. We uploaded it to your own servers, broadcasting to every device in the building." Aldrich's face twisted in rage. "Kill them." But his men hesitated, glancing at the damning footage playing on nearby screens. Marcus didn't wait. He grabbed Mercer and Lena, shoving them toward the service tunnel as chaos erupted behind them. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed them was Aldrich screaming orders, his perfect facade finally shattered. But Marcus knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The tunnel stretched before them, damp and endless. Somewhere ahead lay freedom. Somewhere behind, a wounded but still dangerous predator. And Marcus had learned one thing through all this. Wounded predators were the most dangerous of all. They ran. The service tunnel's darkness swallowed them whole, the only light coming from emergency bulbs spaced every 100 feet like dying stars. The air smelled of wet concrete and something fouler, ancient sewage lingering in the pipes that crisscrossed the low ceiling. Marcus led the way, his outstretched hands brushing against damp walls to guide them, every footstep echoing too loudly in the confined space. Mercer's breathing was ragged behind him. "How far does this go?" "Half-mile to the river outflow," Marcus whispered back. He could hear Lena limping slightly. Her leg wound from the printing press must have reopened during their flight. A distant boom reverberated through the tunnel. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. "They're blowing the doors," Mercer muttered. Marcus picked up the pace. The tunnel began to slope downward, the air growing thicker with the scent of algae and stagnant water. The occasional rat skittered away from their approach, eyes gleaming in the dim light. A junction appeared ahead, 3 branching tunnels. Marcus hesitated, trying to recall the building schematics he'd studied during his janitorial days. Lena pointed left. "Storm drains empty into the river that way." Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. They took the left tunnel at a run. The ground became slick with moss, forcing them to slow down. Marcus's injured ankle protested with every step, but the adrenaline kept him moving. The tunnel opened suddenly into a massive cylindrical chamber, an old stormwater retention basin long since abandoned. Moonlight filtered through rusted grates 40 feet above, illuminating the algae-streaked walls. A metal catwalk circled the space before continuing into another tunnel on the far side. Marcus held up a hand as they reached the catwalk's base. The metal looked rusted through in places. "Test each step." They ascended single file, the structure groaning under their weight. Halfway across, Marcus heard it, boots echoing in the tunnel behind them. Lena turned, raising her pistol. There! The catwalk gave way beneath them. Marcus grabbed for a support beam as the metal gridwork collapsed in a shriek of tearing steel. Lena caught a dangling pipe, her legs swinging over the 20-foot drop to the concrete basin below. Mercer wasn't so lucky. She slid down the angled wreckage before catching herself on a crossbeam, her injured hand leaving a bloody smear on the rusted metal. Flashlight beams cut through the dust cloud. Marcus counted 4, no, 5, figures emerging from the tunnel entrance across the chamber. Aldrich's voice rang out. "Last chance to surrender." Marcus locked eyes with Lena, then Mercer. Both nodded almost imperceptibly. He took careful aim and fired 3 shots at the tunnel mouth. Not at the men, at the crumbling concrete archway above them. The ancient structure held for one terrible second before collapsing in a roar of dust and debris, cutting off their pursuers, for now. "Move." Marcus scrambled across the remaining catwalk sections, helping Lena and Mercer onto solid ground just as more armed figures appeared at the far tunnel entrance, these wearing tactical gear rather than military uniforms. Private contractors. Deniable assets. The first bullets sparked off the catwalk as they dove into the opposite tunnel. This passage was narrower, the walls sweating condensation. The sound of rushing water grew louder ahead. The tunnel ended at a rusted metal grate overlooking the river. Marcus slammed his shoulder against it once, twice. On the third impact, it gave way with a shriek of protesting metal. Cold night air washed over them as they emerged onto a narrow service ledge 20 feet above the water. The city skyline glittered across the river, impossibly distant. Lena peered over the edge. Current looked strong. Mercer checked her remaining ammunition, 2 rounds left. Better than staying here. A shout came from the tunnel behind them. Flashlight beams danced against the walls. Marcus hesitated only a second before stripping off his suit jacket and wrapping the flash drive inside. He tied the sleeves tight around his bicep. Follow the river east. There's a... The first contractor emerged from the tunnel, rifle raised. Marcus didn't finish his sentence. He grabbed both women and jumped. The icy water drove the breath from his lungs. The current immediately seized them, tumbling their bodies like laundry in a washer. Marcus fought to keep his head above water, catching glimpses of Lena and Mercer being carried downstream at terrifying speed. Gunfire echoed from the ledge above, bullets stitching the water around them. Then the river curved sharply, carrying them out of sight. Marcus focused on keeping the jacket-wrapped flash drive above water as the current dragged him under a bridge, then past a series of abandoned docks. His muscles burned with exhaustion and cold. Something brushed his leg, a submerged piling. He kicked away just in time to avoid being impaled. The river widened, the current slowing slightly. Ahead, Lena had managed to grab onto a buoy chain. Mercer was nowhere to be seen. Marcus fought his way toward Lena, his movements growing sluggish with hypothermia. As he neared, he saw why she'd stopped. A concrete outflow pipe spewed foaming water into the river just beyond the buoy. Being swept into that would mean certain death. Take this. Marcus gasped, shoving the jacket-wrapped flash drive toward her. Lena grabbed his arm instead, hauling him toward the buoy. Don't you dare quit now. They clung together to the rusted metal as the river raged around them. Marcus's vision blurred at the edges. He could feel consciousness slipping away. Then, a rope splashed into the water beside them. Marcus looked up blearily. A familiar figure stood on the nearby dock, silhouetted against the city lights. Eli, somehow alive, one arm in a sling, his face a mess of bruises, but alive. He shouted something lost in the river's roar and threw another rope. Marcus grabbed it with the last of his strength, looping it around Lena, first before securing his own grip. The rough fibers tore at his frozen fingers as Eli and another figure, Mercer, dripping wet but conscious, hauled them in. They collapsed onto the dock in a heap of shivering limbs. Marcus rolled onto his back, staring up at the stars. Eli's face appeared above him, grinning through split lips. Miss me? Marcus coughed up river water. You're supposed to be dead. Reports of my demise, Eli said, helping him sit up, were greatly exaggerated. Mercer handed Marcus a dry blanket. Aldrich's men took me to the same black site where they were holding Eli. We escaped during the chaos after you released those files. Lena wrung water from her hair, eyeing the newcomer suspiciously. And you just happened to find us here? Eli pointed to Marcus's jacket, still wrapped around his arm. Tracker in the flash drive casing. Figured you'd head for water after hitting Aldrich's tower. Marcus looked down at the bundle. Wait, you knew about. A gunshot rang out from upriver. They all ducked as the bullet sparked off a dock piling. Flashlights moved along the opposite bank, at least a dozen figures methodically searching. Mercer cursed. They're sweeping both sides. Eli helped Marcus stand. Time to go. This safe house turned out to be a decommissioned fireboat moored in an abandoned shipyard. Its peeling paint and rusted hull concealed a surprisingly high-tech interior. Monitors, communications equipment, even a small armory. A young woman with hacker tattoos and a nose ring looked up from a laptop as they entered. Files are propagating across dark web mirrors. No way Aldrich can scrub them now. Eli made introductions. This is Wren. She's been prepping the data dump. Wren nodded to a bank of screens showing news feeds. Several major outlets were already running with the story, though none had connected it to Aldrich yet. Marcus peeled off his soaked shirt, wincing as the fabric pulled at his various wounds. What now? Mercer handed him a medical kit. Now we hit Aldrich where it really hurts. Lena accepted a towel from Ren. I thought we already did. His reputation? Mercer shook her head. That's just the start. We need to cut off his funding. She pulled up a map on the largest screen. A military base 200 miles north. Blackridge Arsenal. That's where Aldrich has been funneling the stolen money into an off-the-books weapons program. Eli whistled low. You're talking about hitting a military installation. Not hitting. Mercer zoomed in on a specific compound within the base. Documenting. If we can get proof of what's really being developed there. Marcus studied the schematics. That's a suicide mission. Mercer met his gaze evenly. Only if we get caught. Outside, a foghorn sounded, their lookout warning of approaching danger. Ren's fingers flew across her keyboard. Drones show 3 boats approaching from upriver. Arm. Eli grabbed a rifle from the rack. Aldrich must have tracked the signal here. Marcus looked around at the exhausted, battered group. Lena favoring her injured leg, Mercer's hand still bleeding, Eli moving stiffly from his own wounds. They were in no condition for another fight. But as the first bullets pinged against the fireboat's hull, Marcus realized they didn't have a choice. He loaded a fresh magazine into his stolen pistol. The night wasn't over yet. The first bullets punched through the fireboat's hull with metallic shrieks, letting in thin shafts of moonlight through the fresh holes. Ren didn't flinch, her fingers continuing to fly across the keyboard even as splinters rained down around her workstation. Engaging countermeasures, she announced, hitting a final key. Outside, the river erupted in geysers of foam as high-pressure water jets activated along the shipyard's perimeter, Eli's improvised defense system repurposed from old firefighting equipment. The approaching boats veered sharply, their spotlights swinging wildly as the turbulent water threw them off course. Marcus crouched beside a porthole, counting shadows. 3 speedboats, 6 hostiles each. Mercer slapped a fresh magazine into her rifle. We can't take 18 trained operators in our condition. Eli threw open a rusted floor panel, revealing a tangle of wires and pipes. Good thing we're not staying. He yanked a red lever. The entire shipyard's lighting system flared to life simultaneously. Every dock light, warehouse floodlight, an emergency beacon blazing at maximum intensity. The sudden brilliance turned night into artificial day, dazzling their attackers. Lena was already moving toward the stern. Go, go, go. They burst onto the deck just as the fireboat's engines roared to life with a cloud of black diesel smoke. Ren must have activated the remote start. The ancient vessel shuddered as it pulled away from the dock, its water cannons swiveling to blast the nearest speedboat with enough force to knock 2 men overboard. Marcus took cover behind the wheelhouse as return fire chewed across the deck. He returned fire methodically, conserving ammunition. One of his shots found its mark, a gunman clutching his throat as he toppled into the dark water. Mercer and Eli provided covering fire from opposite sides of the boat, while Ren manned the water cannons, using the powerful jets to keep their pursuers at bay. Lena appeared at Marcus's side, her face streaked with soot. Engine rooms taking on water. We won't make it far. Marcus glanced toward the city skyline, still 2 miles downriver. How long? 10 minutes. Maybe less. Another speedboat pulled alongside, close enough for Marcus to see the mercenaries' night vision goggles and matte black rifles. He emptied his magazine into their hull at waterline, punching holes that immediately began taking on river. The boat peeled away, its engine coughing. Eli grabbed Marcus's shoulder. We need to bail before they call in air support. Marcus nodded toward a cluster of industrial docks ahead. There. We can lose them in the refinery complex. The fireboat was listing badly now, its stern settling lower in the water. Ren abandoned the water cannon controls and began tossing gear bags to Mercer. Everything's backed up to the cloud. Just need the hardware to access it. The remaining speedboats hung back, maintaining distance but still following, waiting for reinforcements. Lena squinted at the approaching docks. They'll have the refinery locked down. Not the old chemical transfer tunnels, Eli said, checking his weapon. They run under the whole complex. The fireboat ground against the refinery docks with a shriek of protesting metal. Marcus was first off, providing covering fire as the others scrambled onto the rusted catwalk. Ren came last, clutching a hardened laptop case to her chest. They'd barely reached the first warehouse when the night exploded behind them. The fireboat's fuel tanks igniting in a fireball that lit up the river for miles. The shockwave shattered nearby windows and sent a heat wave rolling over their backs. Mercer didn't pause to look. That'll bring every cop in the city. Good, Marcus said, kicking open a maintenance door. More chaos for us to disappear in. The warehouse interior was a maze of pipes and storage tanks, the air thick with the acrid smell of industrial chemicals. Emergency lighting cast long shadows between the equipment. Eli took point, leading them toward a grated floor hatch marked danger, confined space. The rusted hinges screamed as he pried it open, revealing a vertical ladder descending into darkness. Ren peered down nervously. You're kidding. Only way, Eli said, already climbing down. The tunnel below was a claustrophobic nightmare. A concrete tube barely 5 feet in diameter, half filled with sluggish water that smelled of benzene and rot. Marcus's boots splashed through the ankle-deep muck as they moved single file, the only light coming from Ren's phone. Lena gagged at the stench. Remind me why we're doing this again. Because up there? Mercer pointed upward. Is certain death. Down here? Maybe just probable death. The tunnel branched repeatedly, a rat's warren of forgotten infrastructure. Eli navigated without hesitation, his years of urban exploration clearly paying off. After 20 minutes of wading through the foul-smelling darkness, the tunnel ended at another ladder leading up to a circular hatch. Eli listened carefully before undogging the rusted bolts. The hatch opened onto a storm drain in the middle of a vacant lot, overgrown with weeds and littered with broken bottles. The distant skyline told Marcus they'd traveled nearly a mile underground, putting them deep in the industrial district's abandoned outskirts. Ren collapsed onto the cracked asphalt, coughing. Next time, I choose the gunfight. Marcus helped Lena up, noting how she favored her injured leg. We need to get off the streets. Eli pointed toward a derelict train yard visible beyond the chain-link fence. Freight depots got old shipping containers we can hole up in. They picked their way through the debris-strewn lot, every shadow a potential threat. The train yard was eerily quiet, just the occasional creak of metal in the night wind. Mercer chose a container near the center of the yard, its faded markings indicating it had once carried refrigerated goods. The interior was musty but dry, with enough space for all of them to sit without touching the walls. Ren immediately set up her laptop, the screen's glow casting ghostly light on their faces. Okay, let's see what we're dealing with. The files from Aldrich's Black program loaded slowly. Satellite images of a military base. Technical schematics for something called Project Longbow. Financial records showing payments to shell companies across 7 countries. Marcus frowned at one particular document. These timestamps, whatever they're building, it's nearing completion. Mercer zoomed in on a grainy photo showing Aldrich shaking hands with a man Marcus didn't recognize. Tall, gaunt, with cold eyes and a scientist's stooped posture. Dr. Lasker ran the Pentagon's AI weapons division before they supposedly shut it down. Lena peered at the schematics. This looks like some kind of drone system, but the power requirements are off the charts, Ren finished for her. Whatever this is, it's not just another predator. Eli rubbed his bruised ribs. So Aldrich wasn't just embezzling. He was bankrolling a next-gen weapons program. Marcus studied the deployment maps, with test flights scheduled for next week. A heavy silence settled over the group. The implications were clear. If Aldrich's weapon went operational, no amount of leaked files would stop him. Mercer broke the silence. We need to get inside Blackridge Arsenal. Ren snorted. Sure. Let me just hack the Pentagon real quick. There's another way, Eli said slowly. He pulled up a personnel roster on the laptop. See these names? Private military contractors providing security for the project. Same company that raided the shipyard. Marcus made the connection first. We don't break in. We get hired. Lena shook her head. They'll run background checks. Not if we give them exactly what they're looking for. Mercer's smile was grim. Disgraced special ops washouts. The kind of people who ask no questions. Ren was already searching databases. I can forge credentials good enough to pass their sniff test. But we'll need to sell the act. Marcus thought of the mercenaries on the river. Their gear, their posture, their casual brutality. We'll need weapons. Gear. Eli stood, wincing. I know a guy. Runs a surplus store that caters to unconventional clients. Mercer checked her watch. We move at dawn. Until then, we sleep in shifts. No one argued. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard. Marcus could feel his injuries throbbing in time with his heartbeat. He took first watch, sitting near the container's cracked door with his pistol in his lap. Outside, the wind moaned through the train yard like a living thing. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Whether searching for them or responding to the refinery explosion, Marcus couldn't tell. He studied his reflection in the pistol's slide, the face of a man who'd started this fight as a wrongfully accused janitor and was now planning to infiltrate a top-secret military base. Somewhere along the way, he'd crossed a line from which there was no coming back. And the most terrifying part? He didn't regret it. The container's interior had grown quiet except for the soft breathing of his companions. Marcus checked each of them in turn. Lena curled protectively around her injured leg, Mercer sleeping with one hand still on her weapon, Ren passed out over her laptop, Eli snoring softly with his back against the wall. They'd become his family in this madness. And tomorrow, he might have to lead them to their deaths. The weight of that responsibility settled over Marcus like a physical thing. He gripped the pistol tighter, watching the moonlight play across the train yard outside. Dawn couldn't come soon enough. The freight container door creaked open at dawn, revealing a blood-orange sun rising over the abandoned train yard. Marcus rubbed his stiff neck, watching as Mercer and Eli geared up with weapons from Eli's contact. Black market rifles, tactical vests, and earpieces Ren had synced to military frequencies. Lena tightened the strap around her injured leg, testing her weight. If this goes sideways. It won't. Marcus cut in, though the doubt gnawed at him. He glanced at Ren, who was hacking into Blackridge Arsenal's personnel database. Her screen flashed. Access granted. Mercer tossed Marcus a fake ID badge. Welcome to your new life as Ryan Cole, disgraced Marine. The photo showed Marcus with a buzz cut and hardened glare, unrecognizable from the janitor who'd started this fight. Eli checked his rifle's chamber. Remember, we're mercenaries. No hesitation. No mercy. His voice wavered only slightly. Infiltrating Blackridge. The military base's gates loomed ahead, guarded by armed contractors. Marcus's pulse pounded as their van rolled to a stop. A guard rapped on the window. Credentials. Marcus handed over his badge, keeping his face neutral. The guard scanned it, then eyed their gear. You're with the Longbow security detail? Yep, Marcus said, mimicking the bored tone of a hired gun. The guard waved them through. Inside, the base buzzed with activity. Soldiers marching, technicians wheeling equipment. Ren's voice crackled in their earpieces. Dr. Lasker's lab is in Sector 7. You've got 23 minutes before shift change. Sector 7 was a fortified bunker. Mercer flashed a stolen keycard, and the door hissed open. The lab's centerpiece stole Marcus's breath. A 20-foot drone, its wings lined with what looked like missile ports, its AI core humming. Lena hissed. That's not just a drone. It's an autonomous assassin. Look at the facial recognition database. The monitor displayed millions of civilian profiles, including politicians, journalists, and Marcus. Eli cursed. Aldrich is going to use this to silence anyone who opposes him. Ren's voice turned urgent. Aldrich just arrived on site. He knows you're here. Alarms blared. Marcus grabbed a grenade from his belt. We blow it. Mercer blocked his hand. No, we expose it. Ren, can you live stream this to every news outlet? Ren's fingers flew. Done. But we need 90 seconds. Boots pounded outside. Eli shoved a lab table against the door. Buy her time. Marcus and Mercer took positions, firing as the door burst open. Contractors fell, but more kept coming. Lena dragged a wounded Eli behind cover, her pistol spitting bullets. 10 seconds. Ren yelled. A final gunman charged. Marcus emptied his magazine. Click. Empty. The man raised his rifle. Bang. He collapsed. Daniel Carter stood in the doorway, blood soaking his shirt from Aldrich's earlier bullet. Told you. I'd help, with Ethan, he gasped, before crumpling. We're live. Ren shouted. The world watched as Aldrich's weapon, and his crimes, flashed across every screen. 1 month later, Marcus stood at a graveside. Eli's. The old man hadn't survived his wounds. Lena handed Marcus a newspaper. General Aldrich arrested, Blackridge scandal rocks Pentagon. Mercer joined them, her arm in a sling. They're calling us whistleblowers. Heroes. Marcus tossed the paper onto Eli's grave. He was the hero. A breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass. Somewhere, a bird sang. The fight was over, but Marcus knew the cost would linger. As they walked away, Lena nudged him. What now? Marcus glanced at the sunrise. We keep cleaning up the mess.